fans, Rick here again from Drone Valley. So I'm here today with our second vlog. The first one got a lot of really good positive responses. Seems like a lot of you guys are enjoying this format, so I thought what I'd do is try my best to do one of these a week and release it probably on the weekend. And what I'm going to include in this vlog are questions that come in during the week to me through the channel or through email or through our website, because I have a lot of people that ask questions that I can answer on the YouTube channel pretty quickly, but then there are other questions that come in that need a longer explanation, a little more in-depth explanation. And then I'm conflicted. Do I do a clip on that and explain it, or do I actually, do it in this vlog? So I think what I'll do is try to create one of these a week and release them over the weekend and include probably the top 5 or 6 questions from the week that people have asked, so I can explain it, and then maybe some new technology breakthroughs that have taken place in the hobby, or maybe even some important news stories or legislative changes that may be of interest to you. So I do appreciate you guys, tuning into the channel and subscribing. That really helps us, inspires us to do more of these, so we're very happy about that. And please keep those questions coming, because if I don't have an answer on hand, I will find an answer for you. We have a relationship with a lot of the manufacturers, and I'm emailing back and forth with a lot of these companies on a regular basis. So if there's something you need to know about a particular topic or technology, let me know and I'll definitely find the answer for you. All right, so to get started today, the first question I get a lot is about the Phantom 5. What's the Phantom 5 going to look like? If you're a DJI fan, that's a big deal. And honestly, even if you're not a DJI fan, Phantom has really been kind of in the leading edge of a lot of the braking technology. So they were really the first guys, arguably the first guys that had crash avoidance. Their light bridge technology is well advanced over a lot of the other Wi-Fi connections. So people are wondering, what are they working on? They've got this secret mountain laboratory that they're working through these new technologies and innovations in. And I'm sure their engineers have been heads down for the last year trying to put together what they view as the next generation drone, the perfect next generation drone. So I'm not big on rumors. I'm an iPhone fan, and as soon as the 7 hit, people are already talking about what the iPhone 8 is going to look like. So there's a lot of that going on with the Phantom 5. From my perspective, none of that really matters until they're about to release the drone, and usually a couple of weeks beforehand, a few people will get some insight into what that drone's going to look like, and they'll talk about it. For me, as much as I want to know what the Phantom 5's about, I have kind of a different view on it, in that we're always going to be chasing new technology with these drones. There's going to be innovations coming from all the major companies out there, kind of cool features. But for me as a consumer and as a hobbyist, the reason I put my controller in my hands every day and fly that drone is because I love flying. So for me, it's kind of cool that these innovations are coming, and okay, the Phantom 5 is going to be an amazing drone. Maybe it'll have invisibility, or it'll have other cool features, lasers, who knows. But for me, it's less about the tech and more about the experience of flying. So what I would tell everybody that asks me about the Phantom 5, don't wait for the Phantom 5 to hit. Buy a drone today. If you don't own a drone today, buy a drone. Buy a mini drone, buy a mid-sized drone, buy a less expensive full-size drone. Just get the drone, power up the batteries, fly the thing. It's going to change your life. It really is that much of an epiphany, that flying that thing is just so much fun, and it just opens up so many doors for you. And I read somewhere in a study that stress relief is a critical, important thing in life, right? So relieving as much stress as possible. And a couple of ways to do that are to laugh. So I laugh an awful lot. I suggest you laugh an awful lot as well. But in addition to that, a stress release of a hobby like drones or bowling or fishing, anything you do to sort of take your mind off the pressures of the day is a wonderful thing. So again, my counsel to you would be, Phantom 5's coming. I'm actually doing a clip on things that I think belong in the Phantom 5, which are kind of cool technologies that maybe they missed on the Phantom 4, and I know I got a lot of grief for the Phantom 4 clip I did because people are defending it, and rightly so. It's a fantastic drone. But the Phantom 5 is going to have some cool stuff in it, and I'll talk a little bit more in that clip specifically of what I think belongs in that drone to sort of take it to the next level. But I guess my bottom line is, as cool as it is that the Phantom 5 is coming, don't wait for that drone. You can pick up a Phantom 4 at this point, a standard, for a couple of $100s. And that's something you want to get into and start flying right away, and then you can always upgrade later on. So hopefully that answers that question. Another thing I get a lot of questions on are FPV goggles. Can I use them? Do they work with the Phantoms? Do they work with other drones? And the short answer is you can use them. But if you read the regulation, you're supposed to have a spotter, because first-person goggles means that you can't have a view of the drone, and you're supposed to technically be able to see that drone and look for avoidance of other aircraft in the air or other obstacles out there. When you put the FPV goggles on, you have the drone's view of the world, and you lose a lot of that peripheral vision. So there could be something coming from the side or behind that you can't see. So based on the Part 107 regulations, you have to have a spotter if you're using FPV goggles. Having said that, I like FPV goggles under certain circumstances. So if I'm traveling someplace where I've got to get an incredibly tight shot or a very specific shot, or if I've got to duck below something, trees or whatever it happens to be from a hazard, the FPVs really give me a great view because I'm actually in the drone and I get a perspective of what the drone's doing. Sometimes looking at the drone and trying to fly through those hazards is a lot more difficult. So I like the FPV goggles. The FPVs really came from drone racing, which is a whole nother class of drone operations. And in that case, they've got to have the FPVs because it feels like they're in the drone when they're flying through those obstacles and around the courses. So I wouldn't go nuts with FPV. I would definitely, if you're interested in it, there's a couple of very inexpensive ways to get in it. Actually, the Litchi app at this point, there's a few other apps, will create a FPV goggle experience for you on the app. So you can actually take your phone, fire up that application, and put it into like a Google Glass or Google Cardboard, or one of those FPV snap-ins, those the virtual reality snap-ins that you can take your phone and actually click into the front of it very inexpensively, under $20 in a lot of cases. The cardboard, I think you can almost build yourself if you want to go that route, but that would give you a good experience to see if FPV is good for you, and then you can always upgrade to something else. Now, this is one of the top-of-the-line FPV goggles. It's the Fat Shark product, and this one can either use a radio receiver, which again you'd have to equip your drone with, or it's got HDMI connection directly into it. So I use this one with my Phantoms because both of my controllers have the HDMI output modification done to it, and I can just string a cable from there to here and fly with this. But again, the reason I think it's really cool is that if I have to get a tight shot, I've got it and it works well for me. General flying, I don't use it. I like just going out by myself, firing up my drone, putting it up in the air and flying. I can't do that once I put those on. I have to have somebody else there with me. And honestly, that spotter, it's not a lot of fun for them to watch you fly, right? So unless you're flying a little, letting them fly a little, I don't want to give up the drone. So I don't use them that often, but they are kind of a cool device. So hope that explains it. And I'll do a much more in-depth review of both the Fat Shark goggles and some of the other options that are out there for FPV. The next question I get a lot are on these parabolic reflectors. Now, we sell these. I've talked a long time about these parabolic reflectors. This is actually a new model that we're carrying now. The other model we had was a fixed piece that stuck like this onto your antennas. The challenge with that rigid piece was it was hard to put it in your case. It was hard to store it away. So these new clamshell devices are nicer because they give you exactly the same kind of response you'd get out of that stiff piece. You can fold them in half and put them away in your kit. The question I get, and we've answered this 4 or 5 times I think already, is are these effective? They're wildly effective for a very inexpensive reflector type technology. So once you slide these over your antennas, they're going to redirect all the power from the antennas in one direction out towards your drone downfield. The span of this, the beam spread on this, is about 120 degrees. So it's a very wide beam spread, which means you just have to kind of be in the direction of the drone to use them. The big question I get on these all the time, which is what I'm going to try and answer today, is there a difference between the aluminum one and the copper one? And the short answer is there isn't. Both of these reflective surfaces will do a very good job of taking the signal that would normally be bouncing back this direction and sending it downfield to the drone. Now, from an engineering perspective, there is a different reflectivity coefficient between copper and aluminum, but honestly, the difference between them is so small and the distances you're flying are so great that I could measure that, but it wouldn't make a difference in practical flying. So it really comes down to a preference. Do you like silver? Do you like gold? That's it. We sell one of them because if I have to carry both of them, I may run out of stock of one and then somebody gets upset. So I typically sell the silver ones. I like those. I think they fit cosmetically with the drone pretty well. But the copper ones work just as well. So if you're out there thinking, gee, I want to get those reflectors, do I do copper, do I do silver? It doesn't matter, just pick one up and run with it. And I like these clamshells too because again, by folding them in half like that, they slide into my kit and it takes up a little less space. So pretty cool stuff. All right, the next one I wanted to talk about were the blades. I get awful lot of questions about the carbon fiber blades. These are 2 blades from a P3, and this is the standard blade that comes with it. Again, it's got a lot of flexibility in it. Standard plastic blade. Some of these are a little more rigid than others, but generally they have a lot of flexibility to them. The carbon fiber blades are a little bit more stiff, so if you look at these, you're not seeing any flex at all in those blades. They're extremely tight. The reason I like these carbon fiber blades is because they tend to give you a much more stable platform when you're flying, especially in high winds or if you've got gusting winds. This will tend to keep the drone in the place that you have it, whereas these have to fight a little bit to keep it in shape. Now when you're flying, it's not that big a deal from a filming perspective because the actual drone itself will adjust the camera to stay on target for you. But if you're flying in tight quarters and the wind's buffeting you a little bit and the drone's moving, even though the camera stays rock solid, you've got to be careful that the drone's swinging and running into something. So I would recommend that, I fly with these most of the days, but I carry these carbon fibers with me in case I have a really busy day that is windy and I've got to get in there, get the shot, and get back out. Cost on these maybe twice as much for the carbon fiber blades. The reason I don't use them all the time is because of the stiffness. There are a lot more noisy, I guess, than the plastic blades. So the plastic blades tend to be a little bit quieter, whereas these, when they're spinning, because they cut through the air so efficiently, are a lot louder and a lot more annoying, if you will, to people around you. So I would carry them with you. They're great. They work fine. They're about the same weight, a little heavier, but it doesn't have any impact on the flying ability of the drone. So hopefully that answers the questions around your carbon fiber versus your standard blades. The last question I wanted to talk about was sort of the Part 107 legislation problems that are going on right now. So the Part 107 legislation, it's a law at this point, which means those rules apply pretty much to everybody in a general sense, but they apply to certified pilots in a very real sense. So once you become Part 107 certified and you pass that test, which a lot of you have done already, and congratulations on that, you can fly commercially, but you're restricted by those Part 107 rulings. The challenge, I think, with it is the public still is kind of getting used to drones, and they're not quite sure if they like them yet. And unfortunately, every time somebody does something goofy with a drone, flying it too close to people, flying it over people, flying it at a concert, there's a million videos out there that, maybe not a million, but there's a bunch of videos out there where people are doing really dumb things with the drone. So this last part I wanted to talk about was the courtesy. I get a lot of questions about drone courtesy. Should I fly there? Am I allowed to fly there? Is it right for me to do that? And I try to think about the people we're flying near that aren't drone enthusiasts, maybe don't even know about the technology. From their perspective, they're out trying to enjoy the day, right? So it's a nice quiet day in my backyard right now, and if someone had flown a drone over and kind of hovered over my pool trying to figure out what I'm doing down here, the noise alone would be enough to annoy me, right? Because I want to enjoy the day. So if you're making noise, you're annoying those people. So but you have a right as a drone operator to fly that drone. So it is kind of a balance, right? It's a courtesy thing of, should I fly it close to people? You can't fly it over people, but should I even fly it close to people if you're at like a point of interest or a park or some place where it's quiet? And my suggestion would be just common sense applies. If it's going to annoy you, it's probably going to annoy them. So one of the beefs I've got presently with the drones, and one of the suggestions we're going to make for the Phantom 5, is it's a noisy drone. And it doesn't have to be that noisy. So I'm hoping that with DJI's investment in new technology and their investment in engineering, that they look at how they can make that drone quieter for the next generation. That would eliminate a lot of the hassles, because the biggest complaint I get from a drone flying anywhere I go out, if I'm in a park or I'm at a location, I don't get very many complaints, but when I do get complaints, they're typically about, my God, that thing's loud. Boy, is that loud. It's so annoying. It's so loud. And they've got a point. They're loud. So if they made it quieter, that would eliminate that problem. I do find it interesting that they're not complaining about it being dangerous or me taking pictures, which is really what a lot of the legislative bans are based on. So they're complaining about the noise. So if they make them quieter, I think it'll be a better thing for all of us. The other thing I will tell you is I've got a couple of best practices that I use when I'm flying someplace. And I've talked about these in videos before, but they've served me well, so maybe this is something to think about. When I'm flying my drone, if I'm going to a location that I want to get some footage for that I'm allowed to fly at, say it's a landmark or something, I don't go to the landmark, open up my case, and take off from the landmark, because immediately a lot of people are going to be interested, and if there's small kids around, parents are going to be concerned about the kids' safety. So what I typically do is I'll go to the landmark, I'll look around, make sure that there's no hazards to concern myself with, that there aren't going to be large crowds in certain areas of the landmark, and then I'll go back to a location where I can see the landmark that's far enough away from it, where I'm not going to be near people. I'll launch my drone. I'll typically take it up to 200 feet, which is high enough to eliminate a lot of that noise. I'll fly over to the landmark, make sure I'm not over people, and then I'll drop down to 75 or 100 feet, do my circle around it if I have to, maybe fly above it and shoot down straight. And then when I'm done flying, I go back up to 200 feet, fly back to where I took off from, and then land the drone. And I find that that works really, really well, because I'm only in the area for a short period of time. I can get back to my takeoff point, and I'm not hassling anybody. And that can land there, I can fold it up, get in my car, and be gone. So I'm not trying to be sneaky about it, but I feel like that level of courtesy, where maybe I'm intruding on their afternoon for 10 or 15 minutes when I'm flying it, it is kind of a novelty to see it fly in. And honestly, most people enjoy it. One other thing that's helped me an awful lot, sort of turn the public opinion in our favor, is I do spend time, if people ask me questions about it, explaining the hobby and showing them, if they want, what it looks like through the viewfinder. So if they can see the tablet and see exactly what I'm doing, they're fascinated by it. And more often than not, I would say 99 out of 100 times, the people are happy at that point to watch the drone fly and actually look at the footage. And I mentioned this in a couple of my other clips as well, is I printed out business cards, because I want them to sort of be able to get a hold of me if they have questions, if they want me to send a section of the clip to them, because maybe they're on the beach and I'm taking a footage of the beach and they're waving at the camera. That's a really unique picture for them to share with friends and family. So you're making a fan. And this battle between drone operators and people that hate drones isn't going to be won through some legislative ruling or some force. It's going to be one person by person. So every person that becomes a fan of a drone and understands what they're about will tell all their friends about how they were on the beach this weekend, somebody was flying a quad, and they took this picture of them, and that's a positive experience. So I don't want to sound preachy here, and if I'm coming off that way, I apologize. I just feel that we're at such a critical point in our history around quads and flying RC, basically, that it could go bad for us. If people decide they don't like them, and then that tsunami of opinion grows, it's going to be very difficult to turn that around. And I don't want to be in a situation where all I can do is fly it in my backyard. So I try to be overly cautious and courteous, and I know I could be a belligerent jerk about it and say, look, man, I've got the right to fly here. You just better get out of my way, and I'm putting this drone up. That's never a good way to go. It's just going to cause a lot of kickback, and I guarantee you somebody's going to come and tell you to land the drone. So I'm sure you guys play by the same rules I do, and I'm sure you're courteous out there, but I thought I'd mention it because I get a ton of questions about, can I fly? Should I fly? And when I fly, how should I fly with it? And that's the best advice I can give you. So again, hopefully this has been helpful. I really appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel and listening to the videos we put together and hear me drone on and on. No pun intended. But if there's things you want to hear more about or you have questions, please either add them on the channel or send me an email directly, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can on that. And as long as you're finding value in these, we'll keep making them. So let me know if you do, and the thumbs up are always good. So subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot for watching.